Hello! Today I'm going to read Always Inventing, the true story of Thomas Alva Edison. Given it to me in 2003 by a former student. You might find sticky notes in here. I always do that when you're thinking. Okay. The year was 1847. The winter was cold and snowy. The place was a little town in Ohio. Inside a snow covered red brick house, a baby boy was born. His parents named him Thomas Alva Edison. Most babies cry a lot, but Thomas hardly ever cried. Instead, he cooed and laughed a lot. Baby Thomas was different in another way, too. He looked like he had questions to ask, but baby Thomas couldn't talk yet. Just a few years later, though, Thomas was busy asking questions. When someone didn't know an answer, Thomas tried to discover the answer himself. One day, when Thomas was 3 years old, he was helping his mother in the barn. They were gathering eggs. He noticed a goose sitting on some eggs. He wondered how the goose would make the eggs hatch. Thomas wanted to see if he could hatch some eggs himself. He made a nest with straw and hay. He filled it with eggs. The chickens and geese stared at Thomas. Thomas bent down. Then he sat down on the eggs. What do you think happened? Oh, crack, splat. Thomas looked down at the eggs. Thomas looked at his bottom. Ew, what a mess. Thomas's questions always led to experiments. When he was just 6 years old, one of his experiments got him into trouble. Thomas wanted to see how fire burned. He was in his father's barn. Thomas didn't mean to, but he burned the barn down. His father was mad. Still, Thomas wanted to do experiments, so his mother let him do them. She even bought him a science book. But since Thomas was messy, he had to do his experiments in the basement. Many times his mother heard strange sounds. She sniffed strange smells. Thomas was busy answering his questions. But was the house safe? Thomas didn't want to burn the house down, and he didn't want to get in trouble anymore. Plus, he needed money for more chemicals and materials to do his experiments. So when Thomas was 12 years old, he got a job at a railroad station. He worked on a train. Thomas sold things to the passengers. He sold candy, he sold fruit, he sold newspapers. But he couldn't stop experimenting. In the corner of a boxcar, he built 4 shelves on a small table. He filled the shelves with bottles of chemicals. He laid tools on his table. This was Thomas's new laboratory. Oh, sticky note. Do not explode the train. Former student. One day, when Thomas was using some chemicals, the boxcar rattled and shook. One of the bottles fell to the floor. Boom! An explosion. Thomas had started another fire. He tried to stomp the fire out with his shoes. Then a baggage man helped Thomas put out the fire. The baggage man also threw out the chemicals. Luckily, no one was hurt. That was the end of Thomas's experiments on a train. One day, someone almost got hurt very badly, but it wasn't from one of Thomas's experiments. It was 1862, and Thomas was 15. Thomas saw a small boy named Jimmy playing near the railroad track. Thomas looked the other way and saw a train rolling toward Jimmy. Thomas threw down his things. He ran and grabbed little Jimmy. Then Thomas pulled Jimmy away just as the boxcar whisked by. Everyone at the railroad thought Thomas was a hero, especially Jimmy's father. To reward Thomas for his good deed, Jimmy's father gave Thomas a better job working with a telegraph machine. It was a machine that sent and received bits of sound that stood for letters. A telegrapher figured out what the bits of sounds meant. People all over the country communicated with telegraphs. Now Thomas had a job that paid more money. That meant more experiments. Thomas also learned about wires and machines and electricity. In 1876, a man named Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. When people spoke into the first telephones, their voices sounded scratchy and unclear to the person on the other end. Messages were difficult to understand. Thomas wanted to make the telephone sound better so people could talk to each other all of the time. 1 year later, Thomas invented a transmitter. It had little pieces of carbon inside that made voices sound louder and clearer. The telephone became more helpful and easier to use. Thomas knew he could invent even greater things. In the 1870s, people used candles and lanterns to light their homes. Sometimes the candles and lanterns tipped over and started fires by accident. This was dangerous. Thomas always remembered the sad story of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. In a barn, a cow had kicked over a lighted lantern. A fire started in that barn. The fire spread across the city. It burned for a whole day. Almost the whole city was burned. More than 17,000 buildings burned to the ground. More than 300 people died. Thomas remembered his own mistakes with fires years before. He knew that fire was dangerous. He thought, how can we light homes in a safer way? Thomas remembered as a child reading about Ben Franklin. Ben had experimented with electricity in the 1700s. He had proved that lightning was electricity. Thomas wondered, if electricity could make lightning so bright, then could it be used to light homes? He had to find out how. Thomas read and read. He wrote and wrote. He experimented and experimented. Thomas connected wires that went into a glass ball. At the end of the wires, he twisted tiny threads of cotton into a thin but strong wire. He sent electricity through the wires and thread. Wow, that's awesome. The thread burnt brightly. Finally, Thomas had done it. He had invented a small glass ball that glowed with light, a light bulb. People were excited about Thomas's invention, but his work wasn't done. He had to help people get electricity into their homes so they could use the light bulbs. It took many more years of experiments and inventions, light switches, tools that measured electricity, and wiring too. Finally, in 1882, Thomas invented a network of devices, switches, generators, sockets, and wires. The devices sent electricity to homes in a neighborhood of New York City. The lights went on in 85 homes. Soon, giant electric generators called power plants were built all over the world. Thomas's inventions helped to light up the whole world. Thomas was a hero again. Thomas invented other important things too. A movie camera, a movie projector, a copy machine, a phonograph, a talking doll, and more. Thomas was always inventing. He built more than 1,000 inventions. Many of his inventions led to better inventions that we use today. He made our world a safer place. He made our world a brighter place. He made our world a better place. Thomas died in 1931. He was 84 years old. People were sad. But they celebrated Thomas Edison's life. At 10 o'clock on the night of his funeral, people remembered him. Everyone across the United States turned off their lights and said goodbye to Thomas Alva Edison at the same time. Thank you. So what are you going to invent for the future? Bye. Have a great day.